Thank you for listening to We Have Ways of Making You Talk. Sign up to our Patreon to receive bonus content, live streams, and our weekly newsletter with money off books and museum visits as well, plus early access to all live show tickets. That's patreon.com/wehaveways.
Actor, welcome to We Have Ways of Making You Talk Normandy with me, Al Murray, and James Holland. As you can hear, the birds tweeting in the background. Maybe you can hear the River Odon flowing mellifluously in the background. We're in Normandy, and in our last episode, we were telling the story of the Epsom battles and the attempt to get to Hill 112.
Yep, get across the Odon, get that bridge, head across the Odon. That was the idea.
And we've just done that. We have just driven across the Odon. Took us, 10 minutes from the last place?
Yeah, but we're kind of a good 5 miles or so. 7 miles, I'd say. But
yeah.
And we 5 miles from where we started in
close
Norrie.
to the rolling barrage ahead of us.
Yeah.
One of the the précis is, the idea is to get across the Odon and ultimately to get to the high ground at Hill 112.
Yes, because that really does sort of command the battlefield all around Caen.
Yeah.
If you've got that. I mean, the Rore Ridge as well, but Hill 112, and we haven't got there yet, but when we do get there, it's so darn obvious. You've got a 360-degree view from up there. That's the point. It's not, it's Hill 112, so that tells you that it's only 112 metres above sea level, whatever. I mean, it's not.
But that's plenty.
It's not massive, but it is significant, and this is this thing that we always go on about high ground and how high is the high, and how big is the hill, and it's very easy to think of some sort of conical rolling hill. It's not really like that. It's more like a sort of plateau once you get up there. But what you can see, we've now reached the 5 mile point.
Yep.
We're at the River Odon at Tourmeville, and Verson, the village of Verson, is just a couple of miles or mile and a half away to the east. Gavrous on this southern side of the Odon is another kind of mile and a half to the west. It's a narrow bridge. If we walk over to the bridge a little bit and look at the river, it's not tiny, but it's not a big river either.
It's enough, though, right?
It's enough. But the key thing about this is we've just dropped quite steeply from the village, Tourmeville, and I think the village is Tourmeville.
Yes.
And we can see the sides going up onto the high ground towards Hill 112 are also quite steep. I mean, only to the tune of, 60, 80 foot, something like that, and then it kind of levels out again. But the kind of heart of the Odon Valley, it's a narrow stretch of, what are we talking about? Kind of 300 yards, 200 yards wide or something. It's quite steep.
Yes, it drops down quite dramatically. And the river is clearly, over the millions of years, cut.
Yes, that's a kind of 20-foot drop
valley
or so, isn't it?
meandering down. Yeah.
So, jolly useful to have this bridge here rather than having to bring your Baileys up and get the engineers to bridge it. But they get over here on the night of the 27th, 28th of June. So the morning of the 28th of June, it's day 3 of the Epsom battle.
Yep.
They were supposed to be here on day 1. It's the same old story. It never quite goes according to plan. Time gets sucked up.
Well,
takes longer than you think. But a friction, absolutely. But the 12th SS, which are doing the hard yards of holding this whole line, and still trying to kind of hold the Rore Ridge. The Rore Ridge finally goes on the 27th. Is now in British hands. That means that they are absolutely run ragged. I mean, Panzermair and his men they've had to take the lion's share, and they're just absolutely broken.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because even the way we talk about the battles here makes that point. The British and the Canadians and the Americans plan operations, stage operations, carry out operations that have objectives, and it takes them 3 days to get to somewhere that was supposed to happen in 1 and all that. The Germans aren't, apart from Lüttich, which is the Mortain counter-offensives later in the Normandy battle, the Overlord battle, the Germans aren't thinking like that. They're not saying, okay, Tuesday week will be Operation Schweinhund, and that's when they're simply not operating on that plane, are they?
No.
It's firefighting. It's relentless. The idea that Panzermair knows that one of them's Martlet, the other one's Epsom, is our conceptualisation of what's going on.
He hasn't got a clue. It's just one big battle.
It's just one big battle. And obviously he knows from the prisoners they're picking up and from the RT they're listening to Well, this 43rd West 6th Division are here.
Well,
And
they've come in again on the afternoon of the 27th.
But you know what I mean? Sherwood Rangers at Yeomanry over there. That's 11th. Is that 11th Armoured Brigade? I'm not sure. We'll have to find out.
Yeah.
That's as much as they know. He doesn't know that there's Epsom with the subjective. He knows there are things he's absolutely got to hold on to. He knows he's not meant to cede ground because that's the Führerbefehl. But beyond that, I think it's because I sometimes think when you read about the Normandy battle from the British or Allied perspective, because the conceptualising the Normandy battle tends to be done from an Allied perspective, doesn't it? In terms of here's Epsom, here's Martlet, upcoming Charnwood, Jupiter, thinking like that. The Germans, if you were to write a history of the Normandy battles from a German perspective without knowing any of that, without knowing what any of those things were, what you're looking at is this endless, relentless. Suddenly that morning, this part of your line is being subjected to that 700 gun barrage. Like, what the hell? Well, I'm going to have to do something about that. Your man coming up and blocking the line with he scraped together 4 Panzer IVs, what's left of his Panzer company. That's what the Germans are doing. And they're not operating on literally on the operational level, the way that the Allies are, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And the problem for the 12th SS, the much beleaguered 12th SS, is they're trying to have to hold everything. I mean, why is 11th Armoured Division able to get across this bridge? Why is it still intact? Because it's absolute chaos. They can't be everywhere all the time, and they're trying to hold They're trying to hold the nodal points. They're trying to hold the high ground. They're trying to be everywhere. They're trying to respond to this unbelievably relentless pressure, which is on a 2-mile front on 8th Corps front, but is on another 2 miles on 30 Corps front. So that's actually 4 miles they've got to deal with. And they just can't be everywhere. And they're run absolutely ragged. And that's why on the morning of the 28th of June, day 3 of Epsom, the 8th Durham Light Infantry and 25 tanks of the 3rd RTR are able to push on straight on out of this ridgeline here, out of this escarpment, get onto the high plateau and push right on up to Hill 112, find it completely empty. It's just not there at all. And push onto an 8th DLI, push onto the reverse slopes where there's a wood and occupy that wood. And that's there. The problem is at the end of day of the 28th is you've got this comparatively tentative salient, which is now stretching out over the River Odon in a big kind of rectangle, which is coming out, and they push on even further as well on the right-hand flank of 8th DLI as well. And that afternoon it becomes clear that the British troops on the right-hand flank, on the western flank, 30 Corps, and the others on the left, they haven't caught up. So the problem with a salient is it's all well and good because you're taking ground, but it also means that you've got 3 sides you need to defend rather than
you're
one.
now exposed. So all gains create fresh risk.
Right, and what Dempsey and Monty know
is what's coming.
They know that 2 SS Panzer Corps plus Kampfgruppe Weidinger from 2 Das Reich plus the first leading elements of the 1st SS Leibstandarte, they're all arriving over, basically on the 28th, 29th of June. You can expect pretty heavy counterattack.
But what they also know is that not only have you now got, it's you've more surface area, as it were, is the way of looking at it, more exposed surface area to the enemy. You've also been doing a very, very high intensity operation for 3 days. You might be winning, but you've been attrited. So your balance sheet is very different to day one, right?
Yes.
Your assets are in a different. So not only, because that's the thing Montgomery and Dempsey also know, is that they're not in the state they were in 3 days ago, and fresh Germans are arriving. So they come back off Hill 112, don't they? They
do, but they don't do that till the 29th.
Yeah.
They don't do that till the 29th. The decision is not made until the following day. So we're still on the 28th, and it's not until the following day, the 29th, that the big counterpunch happens.
Yeah.
And Dempsey and Monty know this. And Dempsey informs O'Connor that he can expect some pretty, they've got a bit of intelligence. Doesn't explain that it's ultra, but explains that that he can expect a fairly heavy counterattack. And this is the moment where Epsom really offers the opportunity to grind down the Germans as they're arriving into the fray. And the German situation is made worse by the fact that Dolman has died on the 27th.
Yeah.
Dolman is the commander of the German 7th Army, which covers this whole area of Normandy and Brittany, because its 15th Army are on the other side of the River Orne, at the kind of the eastern flank of the Normandy bridgehead. So all the Normandy bridgehead area is within the area of the German 7th Army.
Yeah.
Dolman dies of a heart attack in Cherbourg or whatever, wherever he is, and up in the Cotentin. And what that means is that Paul Hauser takes over. And Paul Hauser is an SS general, and he is the commander of the 2 SS Panzer Corps, which is just arriving into the theatre.
Right.
So what that means is not only are they just arriving, they've also got a new commander, because Bittrick takes over because Hauser has been bumped up to command 7th Army. So you've got a change of high command at exactly the same time that you've got to do a counterattack. And you're doing that counterattack from a German point of view without any opportunity for reconnaissance whatsoever. You're just throwing these units straight in. Dempsey and Monty know that's going to happen, and they're thinking, brilliant, bring it on, because this gives us an opportunity to grind them down. Yeah. So what we're going to go next is we're going to go and look at that counterattack from the 9th SS. So we're going to head back towards Haute-le-Bosque and
Sure.
And see that road where they come down, where the Germans come down with their Panthers and Panzer IVs and all the rest of it.
Where are we, James? With the sound of the dual carriageway in the background, which is
we're here at Belleval Farm.
Yeah.
So it's just behind these trees here is Belleval Farm, and we are maybe a mile south of Sure. And this is all this is the afternoon of the 29th of June and into the 30th.
Yeah.
So the 9th SS and the Kampfgruppe Weidinger counterattack is kind of just hitting a brick wall, and this is part of the brick wall. And here we are at the kind of, I suppose, almost the kind of western base of the salient.
Yeah.
We're north of the River Odon, which is, a mile or so to the south of us of where we are here. And they're attacking at that base. Yeah. Which is exactly what, this is what Dempsey and Montgomery were fearing, was that if you left 8th DLI and all the rest of them up on, and 11th Armored Brigade Division up on the hill, Hill 112, they'd get cut off at the bottom.
Yeah.
So much better to come back, still keep your salient over the Odon, but kind of a much more kind of restrained, shorter, stubbier salient, rather than being out on a limb.
Yeah.
And this decision has had a lot of criticism over the years.
Yeah, it has.
Because of what happened subsequently, and we'll go into that a little bit later. But, this idea of, it's anathema to the British to have to kind of spill blood over the same place twice.
Yeah.
But on balance, you'd have to say it was the right thing to do. Because, when they took it, you only had the 12th SS there.
Yeah.
Now you've got elements of 1st Panzer, 10th Panzer, 9th Panzer, elements of 2nd Panzer, and the remnants of 12th SS as well. So you've got elements of, and quite a lot of, up to 5 Panzer divisions.
Yeah.
Whereas the British have only got 1 armoured division.
Yeah. Yes. So
for all their firepower.
Yeah. And also that's been fighting for several days, so that and you don't want to get yourself off balance and overstretch.
Yeah, absolutely. And what they're trying to do here, the new orders are dig in, hold the ground.
Yeah.
Don't give up an inch. And the people that are dug in here are the 6th King's Own Scottish Borderers.
Yep.
And this is Robert Woolcombe, who wrote that brilliant memoir called The Lion Rampant. The Lion Rampant is the lion symbol of the 15th Scottish Infantry Division, which is a kind of big snarling lion and all the rest of it, hence the name. And he's here, and they're just being shelled all day.
Yep.
Well, not all day, from the afternoon into the evening of the 29th and pretty much all day of the 30th.
Yeah.
It's just digging around this farm, hope for the best.
Yeah.
And there's dead everywhere. When they move into the position here, there's dead Scottish people, there's dead from the 15th Scottish, there's dead Germans, there's dead cattle.
Yeah.
It's just an absolute carnage site.
Yeah.
And also, because it's June, the weather's come out a little, the sun has come out.
So there's flies.
There's flies.
Yeah.
It's all pretty grim.
Yeah.
And this whole area, which is so beautiful now, is completely pot-marked with shell holes and carnage. I mean, I'm pretty sure if you went into that wood, you'd find all sorts of bits of metal and stuff.
If you're dug in with an anti-tank net.
Yep.
So you've got your 6-pounders, your 17-pounders up here, your M10s.
Yeah, and you've still got those 700 guns.
You've got the 700 guns.
The sun's out, so you've now got naval spotters.
Sun's out, guns out.
Sun's out, guns out, planes out.
I mean, this is the thing, though.
Typhoons sweeping in.
Yes, they've withdrawn from their extended salient, but yes, they're also... The Germans cannot resist the bait of trying
the Pavlovian response.
The Pavlovian response. We must counterattack, we must push them back into the sea, and then what you end up doing is feeding yourself into a defensive system that's designed to smash you to pieces.
Yeah.
And, if attrition ultimately is the name of the game here in Normandy, unfortunately for everyone involved, right? That's what you're getting out of this.
Yeah.
So even though they do, and it is one of those really contentious decisions, even now, of decisions in Normandy, of that kind of category of historiography, isn't it? Terrible error but why wouldn't you do that, given the risk you're running of being cut off, and also the opportunity it offers you that you're bringing the Germans onto
the other
yourselves.
thing everyone always forgets also is that the cost of taking Hill 112 in the first place is not high.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost them anything. So it's effectively, it's like, just imagine you didn't actually get it in the first place.
Yeah.
Then you got to start again.
Yeah.
But would the cost have been any less if you'd held on to it?
Well, that's the problem.
And I would argue no.
But also at this stage in the, it's only a week after the Great Storm. You're not in full fettle either. If you're 21st Army Group, are you? Second Army, you haven't got everything you need because the supply side of stuff's been massively disrupted, right?
No, absolutely.
So you aren't able to reinforce the extent that you would have been. You're able to then commit later on in the overlord battle, because that's the point, isn't it?
Yeah.
The resources that then get poured into Hill 112 are not available at this point to Montgomery and Dempsey.
No.
So they aren't able to commit on that level. Full stop.
No. So actually, it's a complete false argument, really. Because first of all, getting to Hill 112 hasn't cost very much. Because it hasn't cost much blood in the first place. So it's not like you're spilling blood over the same ground, because you haven't spilt much blood in the first place.
Yeah.
Not much.
Yeah.
It's been taken comparatively easily.
But the risk you run of holding on to it at this point is too great.
Yeah. So it hasn't spilt a huge amount of blood yet. So I kind of think it's sort of. I think it was the right decision. Anyway, we're going to go to Hill 112 next. So after the break, we'll go back there, and then we'll look at what happens with Operation Jupiter as well.
Yes.
And that'll be in part 2.
We'll see you in a bit.
See you in a bit.
Welcome back to We Have Ways to Make You Talk Normandy.
Yes. Normandy.
Where James and I have struggled to the top of, and our travelling party. So obviously we have a large logistic tail to make all of this possible.
Yes, we're following the policy of big war.
This is a big war production. We've made it to the top of Hill 112. And before we get into
what follows,
oh yeah, I see.
Yeah, you get it now.
I get it now. You stand up here. So we're on the eastern end of the feature here, so at the end of the old road. So there's a new road that's cutting down over the hill. And you can see, well, Caen's grown since, but there's
Caen. You can almost reach out and touch it. It's what
the other way. The other way, you look west,
and
you can see past, parallel with Bayeux, can't you? You can see all that way, and then when we look north, 7 miles away, you can see the tree line where
Epsom begins.
And the
truth of the matter is, if you hold the whole of this ridge line, so basically you can see in front of us here. We're looking north. You can just see the rooftops of that's Verson and that's Baron. There's Verson over there, and behind that is the Odon Valley. That very kind of narrow, suddenly steep little valley that we were in the start of the first part of this episode. It then once you get out of the steep bit of the valley sides, it's then quite a gentle climb up to the summit. And it's not a big rounded hill. It's more like it's more like a ridgeline, really. And if you hold the whole of this, you get 360 degrees.
Now
you can't get 360 degrees where we're standing because there's trees in the way. But basically, there's a vantage point that it's such a dominating, commanding position. And Panzermeer comes up here on the 1st of July.
Yeah.
The battle for Epsom is over. Both sides have been ground down. 12th SS is just an absolute wreck.
Yeah.
9th SS has come straight in and been absolutely hammered. Ditto 10th SS as well. Not as badly, because they're not main part of the counter thrust. So there's now elements of 5 Panzer divisions around this area, holding this area, and you have to say that Dempsey's decision O'Connor's decision to pull back to just a narrow bridgehead over the Odon rather than the big one that's holding Hill 112 is a sensible one. And when we're talking about the narrow bridgehead, we're talking about the bit that you can't see from here, the bit that's hidden.
Yeah.
So they've got a toehold in the valley, they've got the river, they've got the bridge, that's secure, but they're not on this high ground. And Panzermeyer comes up here and he just sees a scene of total carnage and devastation. There's pockmarked with blackened hulks of tanks, dead lying absolutely everywhere. The whole landscape pockmarked with craters, shell holes, and so on. It's a scene of utter destruction, and yet it's just a pause.
Well, that's the whole thing about this. I mean, we'll talk about the decision to withdraw from here, won't we? But the truth is after all, this is the critical piece of high ground for Normandy, as you've just said.
It's a critical piece of high ground for the whole of the British-Canadian area.
Which is why it's the first proper offensive. There are no mysteries on offer here, are there? We're very often people go, why are they doing that? Well, it's the obvious piece of high ground that you have to have. It's the next phase out of the lodgement. It's the first blinking thing they do. I mean, obviously, you know, I think it's quite interesting that because we were talking before about how for the Germans there is no Operation Epsom, there is no Malto. Those things don't exist. It's just relentless stuff being thrown at you by the Allies. But it's blindingly obvious
once you're up here. In a way that is, I mean, it really is blindingly obvious.
Yeah.
I mean, you really don't need to understand much about military activities and how it works to realise that this is a significant feature.
Yeah.
You can see kind of forever.
Well, and also, by the same token, that means you want to make sure you actually do hold it when you take it, rather than half do it or half commit. You've got to commit completely and properly to taking this. You can't half bake it, which is part of the decision making that's to come, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So a pause is needed.
Yeah.
You know, it's a pause is needed for more supplies to come up. From the British point of view, they've held on to that aggro, they've held on to that artillery.
Yeah.
43rd Wessex Division only comes in at the beginning of Operation Epsom. And actually, as a kind of, it's interesting because Ivo Thomas, when they first move up on, I think it is the 28th, into position, or maybe it's the 27th, I can't remember. But anyway, they move up at the kind of comparatively, you know, on the left-hand flank of the 15th Scottish Infantry Division. And they're still within mortar range. So although they're coming up to sort of some man view, they're getting shelled.
Yeah.
And Ivo Thomas, Butcher Thomas as he becomes known, or Von Thoma, he has to make a run for it from his Jeep.
Yeah.
Because they're under attack. You know, so even 5 miles away, they're still not entirely safe.
Yeah.
But anyway, they need a pause. They also decide to switch emphasis, and it's the attack on Caen.
Yeah.
So that happens.
Yeah.
You know, that's cleared. When does that start? On the 7th, I think it is, of July, and it's finally kind of taken on the 9th, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you've got another attack. You've got Murray 2, which is the kind of wider area with the newly arrived 276 Infantry Division, German Infantry Division, and that's maybe kind of 10 miles that way, you know, in the 30 Corps area. So that's 50 Division again, you know, who landed on Gold Beach on D-Day. So that's Murray 2 is the attack on Hotto and all around there. That's going to be so the main assault, Operation Jupiter, is going to be on the 10th of July.
Yeah.
That's the 43rd Wessex Division. You've had a comparatively light time of it in Epsom, but I'll kind of, you know, they arrived late. They were arriving in the sort of 18th, 19th, 20th of before the storm and just after the storm.
Yeah.
56th Infantry Brigade, supported by the Crocodiles of the Buffs.
Yeah.
In I think their first major action, isn't it?
Yeah.
And 31st Armoured Brigade.
Yeah.
So they push up. They manage to get up these early stages. They're coming on a kind of sort of on an eastern trajectory. So there's Baron.
Yeah.
There's Verson. They're coming sort of that eastern end of and using this
dead ground as
cover for their advance. And actually, they make pretty good progress because the Germans haven't defended that bit. It's this bit that they've defended.
Well, because as we were saying earlier, you wouldn't you? I mean, it's the critical piece of high ground.
Yeah. So I think what we should do now is we should go to Malto, because that's where a lot of the big fighting happens.
Right.
We're going to talk about Malto and the effect of the 102nd Heavy Panzer Battalion.
All right.
You know what they're using.
Yeah. Well, they haven't come in their Skodas.
No, let's put it that way. And we'll see what happens there. And Malto is another of these villages that just gets completely destroyed. But it's a hell of a spot, isn't it?
Yes, and it completely announces its importance when you get up here. You can see what the fuss, and you can see why in the months before the invasion, before D-Day, Dempsey and Monty have got their sights set on it. Because they are, because we have talked a bit about how, the emphasis is so much on making sure the landings pay off. But this is only a fortnight after D-Day, really, isn't it? That this is rolling, or intended to be. It's
intended to be. And then 3 weeks, effectively.
Yeah, exactly. Which is nevertheless remarkable that 3 weeks after landing, you're putting in corps-size attacks. I mean, honestly, it's
700 guns and whatnot.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So today, because we're here on the 5th of June, there's actually a commemoration going on for the men who fought here. There's a statue of an infantryman.
Yep,
there's
43rd Wessex Division.
There's a Churchill tank up here and a 25-pounder. So there's a fair deal, and this is on the old road, set back from the main road that runs along the crest of the ridgeline, and we've got a selection of jeeps here and stuff, and people in their smocks and their battle dress, and there's a Union flag flying and a tricolour, and the sun's come out and the larks are up. It's rather nice, isn't it?
It's lovely. Yeah, it's not a scene of devastation now, that's for sure.
I mean, I often think, very often, what happens in Normandy is the Germans suffer the kind of defeats that an Allied army would go, no, we're all right, thanks. But maybe we shan't bother. You know what I mean? I mean,
yeah.
And certainly the commitment the Germans showed to staying here is remarkable. I mean, also, as we've said, exactly what the Allies want them to do is they want them to commit to defending here.
Yep.
So they can destroy them. So it's a peculiar paradox, isn't it?
But what they really, really want to do is destroy them and take the ground very quickly.
And take the ground as quickly as possible. Yes, of course. But destroying them is very, is as high on the Allied agenda as anything else. And the Germans are going, all right then,
yeah.
fine.
It's a hell of a spot, isn't it?
Yeah, it's incredible.
It really is. It's
very,
really,
very moved.
For those of you who want to come to Normandy,
yeah,
and go inland a little bit, this really isn't very far inland, and Epsom as a battle to study and to follow,
and it's only 2 weeks after D-Day. You relax, everyone.
Yeah,
it's okay.
It's it's a really really good one.
And where are we going next, Jim?
We're going to go to Malto. Village of Malto, which I've never been to before, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, cool.
But it's a major feature.
I do like the idea that there's somewhere we haven't been here before.
Yeah, so do I.
I'm digging that.
And truth of the matter is, it's another of these villages that gets absolutely hammered, and it gets hammered with large numbers of 43rd Wessex Division men in it.
Right.
And they have a terrible time.
Sorry, I'm just slowing down because
for the Wessex men.
It's a Churchill tank to go in.
Yeah, well, we always need to pause for that.
Right, so here we are in Malto.
Malto, yeah, we're standing by the church. There's impressive amounts of spang on the gates.
Spanged up this church.
And you can see that the whole roof has had a new one since 1944.
Yeah.
You can see the join, can't you? I mean, the whole of that roof has just been knocked off.
Yeah.
Lots of damage on the edges of it.
Yeah.
The whole village is a completely new village. There's one farmhouse just beyond the church, but that's basically it. And this place was flattened. I mean, absolutely flattened. And so this is Operation Jupiter, really. This is where that takes all the punishment. This is a second attempt to kind of, they were on Hill 1-2. They made the decision to pull back from it. Hadn't been very costly, and now they're having to take it again.
Yeah.
So this is Operation Jupiter, launched on the 10th of July. And we were saying when we were on top of Hill 112 that this was 56th Infantry Brigade, part of the 43rd Wessex Division, supported by the Crocodiles of the Buffs, their flamethrowers, and then the 31st Armoured Brigade, which is predominantly Churchill's, pushing through. And they take Éteville quite easily. So what they're doing is they're going around, they're moving forward using the dead ground around the south and east side of Hill 112.
Yeah.
So from on that summit, you can't see that advance.
Yeah.
And you could really see that dead ground from when we were up there.
Yeah.
So they take Éteville, which is like a mile to the kind of southeast of where we're standing at the moment. and then push on to Malto, and it all seems fine. They take the village,
cut round and excise Hill 112 in essence.
Yes, they're sort of trying to get round through the back door effectively, and that's all fine, except they managed to take Malto, and then the 102nd Heavy Panzer Battalion is waiting for them.
Oh.
And they're Tigers.
Yeah.
And in no time at all, the infantry's gone to ground, they're being blasted to pieces, and 39 British tanks have brewed up.
Right.
So they're in a very bad way, and this is already turning into not the triumph that they were hoping for. Later that same day, the 10th of July, Ivo Thomas, the Butcher Thomas, von Thoma, orders up the Shermans of the 4th Armoured Brigade, and this is commanded by Michael Carver, who later becomes a Field Marshal.
Yeah.
But at this point is a 27-year-old brigadier who's only become brigadier of the brigade commander of the 4th Armoured Brigade on the 27th of June. And Thomas says, right, you need to send your Sherman tanks up through there. And Carver refuses because he's part of an independent armoured brigade.
So he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to say yes.
No. He is supporting.
Yeah.
They're not under command of. They are support. They are supporting.
Does that go down?
It goes down very badly. Ivo Thomas.
Thomas's reputation is for having
no sense of humour whatsoever.
Yeah, and being a
total martinet.
Street very hard.
A very tough bastard, exactly. But Carver rightly recognises that if 39 Churchill tanks have just been brewed up,
the Shermans are going to really had.
They really had it. Shermans are not designed for one-on-one tank actions with Tigers.
No. When
the Tigers hold all the aces and they're hull down and they can see you coming. There's a time and a place, and this isn't one of them. It's 100% the right call. It has to be said from his point of view.
Yeah.
Then the 4th Dorsets are told to push on through, and they get to Etterville, and that's all fine. And then A Company is sent forward to support the operations in Malto.
Yeah.
And so what they're now doing is they're now funneling companies and infantry battalions into Malto to soak it up because they've taken this village. They don't want to lose it again.
Yeah.
And they get absolutely hammered at the edge of the village. As they're approaching Malto, they get absolutely hammered. The whole of A Company of the 4th Dorsets gets lost. I mean, it gets not lost physically. Destroyed. I mean, it gets destroyed, Killed in action, wounded in action, missing in action.
Rue de Dorset, so...
there you go. Yeah. So it's all happening here, right where we're standing, all around the church. And frankly, you can see all that evidence, can't you, of the fighting? Another company of the 4th Dorsets gets pushed forward. Casualties are absolutely mounting. Hampshires have been in here to start off. If they've taken Malto in the first place, they're surrounded too. They're having a shocker. Sergeant Walter Keynes of the 4th Dorsets, he says it was hell. No one dared put his head above the corn. As soon as Jerry observed the slightest movement, a long burst of fire would be the reply. So basically, they're stuck in the cornfields just at the edge of the village, and there's no getting away from the fact that the 10th of July is an absolutely terrible day for the Wessex Division. And the next day is just more of the same. Nebelwerfers, mortars, but it has to be said that British artillery is absolutely immense. And while it was the turn of the 9th SS to get completely ground down and the Kampfgruppe Weidinger,
it's the 10th
on the end of Epsom, this time it's the turn of the 10th SS Frundsberg. They cop it.
For all the punishment they're dishing out, they absolutely cop it.
They're getting flung back 10 times more. I mean, the tonnage of shells which are being fired at them is absolutely extraordinary. So they managed to hold on to Malto, this wreck of a village. But I mean, you're holding on to it, but all it is just rubble and ruins.
Yeah.
But they can't actually push onto Hill 112.
Yeah.
And that's where all the criticisms for retreating start to come in.
Yeah.
If only we hadn't got rid of it in the first place.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff.
And it is only over there. Let's just, I mean, for the listener, obviously you can't see that, but it was a 4-minute drive from when we were at the top of Hill 112. It's a stone's throw from here, really.
Yes.
So you can see why, if you were stuck here and things were going very badly, you'd be going, well, weren't we up there?
Yeah.
The other day.
But if you think about the beginning of Operation Jupiter, the second attempt to take Hill 112, you've got this little kind of, chalk ice of a salient over the River Odon, a little sort of rectangle.
Yeah.
And what you're getting a creeping amount of ground that is going all around the kind of eastern and western sides of Hill 112.
Yeah.
They've still got the summit, but you've still taken quite a bit of extra ground, and you're holding this ground.
Yeah.
So that means, once you've got that ground, it means you can move up more guns, you can move up more mortars, you can dig in, you can do that grinding thing that they're doing so well, and you can just attrit the Germans, who are not getting the resupplies and not getting the kind of replacement troops that the British are getting. So it's a terrible 2 days of battle for the 43rd Wessex Division, and yet they have gained ground. They are doing what they need to do, which is grinding down the enemy. This is still, we're not obviously not at the breakout by any stretch of the imagination. They haven't quite taken the summit, but it's not from a big overview point of view. It's not total disaster because
they are
attriting.
When we're told about the controversy around these decisions, is this something? Obviously, Montgomery will never have said we did the wrong thing there.
No,
I can't imagine that happening. Dempsey, we don't really know what Dempsey thinks. Well, what level is this armchair or is this historian criticism, or is
this is armchair criticism? I mean, at the time, morale in the Wessex Division is taking quite a big hit. They've been here for 3 weeks, and they're absolutely decimated.
Yeah.
And this place, as we were talking about when we were on the top of Hill 112, it's just it's a horror story because it's very hard to get the dead.
Yeah.
Because the moment you lift up your head, the machine gun bursts, the mortar, all the rest of it. So they're tending to stay out there, and it's getting there's quite a lot of hot days in July. There's still the kind of miserly weather and the mixed weather and rain, but there's also lots of heat as well.
Hot days,
and the whole place just stinks. It stinks of dead Germans, it stinks of dead British, and it stinks of dead animals, and it's
enormous bloated cow corpses.
Yes, of finger, their feet sticking up in the air and all the rest of it. I mean, it's so hard, I think, to kind of transport yourself, because we're looking at it now, and okay, you can see it's a kind of it's a new village, and you can see the spang on the church, but it's a beautiful summer day, and all is right with the world.
Signs for the European elections up, so
right,
all is calm and normal.
And you can have free democratic elections rather than
the
swastika flying over you, etc., etc. So it is hard to kind of transport yourself, really. But what you can do is you can get the lay of the land. You can absolutely see how it all fits together geographically and from a terrain point of view. And that helps you, I think, when you're trying to kind of piece together what's going on here. And every hit you take on the Germans, they're suffering every bit as badly, if not worse. And they haven't got the replacements, and you are encroaching on that territory. So you are going to take Hill 112 at some point. It's just when.
Right, where are we going next, Jim?
Well, we'll go around the back of Hill 112, and we'll finish off the story of Operation Exercise, the worst named aggressive operation of the entire Normandy campaign. Indeed, the whole of Northwest Europe.
That neither of us could remember. It's just not stuck in your head at all.
No, it's rubbish. Veritable, that's a name.
Blackcock.
Yeah, that's a name.
That's an operational name. Blackcock
Jupiter's quite good, to be fair.
Jupiter's pretty strong.
It's all right.
Anyway, let's go.
All right.
Right, so Jim, here we are. Actually, we're in the back of the Citroen because it's
the wind's got up.
The wind's got up. It's too windy to talk into, even with these pop shields on and everything. This car reveals itself in stages. I've sat in the front, now I sit in the back, and it's
I hardly ever sit in the back.
Very, very special. Well, because you're normally gripping the wheel like a maniac.
The only time I sit in the back is when I'm waiting for the AA man.
And what does he greet you with? A weary nod? Oh, there you are.
Yeah. A lot of teeth sucking.
Yeah. The usual.
What is it this time? Battery run out. Carburetor gone. Alternator. Something like that.
But more importantly, where we are, we're not just in some random car park. We are at the scene.
We're in lush countryside.
Very lush countryside. These gigantic arable meadows, but we're cut up with tree lines.
Yep. Raised hedgerows.
Raised hedgerows and sunken roads. The odd sunken road around here too, isn't there?
Yeah. But the reason we're here is because this is the main axis of advance for the 9th SS, who finally launched their counterattack on the 29th, although it has to be said, to a massively delayed start. So they're arriving into position. So they've reached the kind of Normandy front on the 26th. They're getting into position here. 10th SS kind of, just to the south of Hill 112.
Yeah.
But 9th SS are coming round the back. And this is why Dempsey and O'Connor decided to pull back from the summit of 112 because they know perfectly well that they're going to be surrounded. They've got this big, long salient, and that makes the base of the salient very, very vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, what they don't want to do is be snipped out either side at the base of a salient and then have the rest, you know, out at the top of the salient completely surrounded and destroyed. I mean, that's an absolute catastrophe. So that's why they make the very sensible decision to retreat back and create that chalk ice shape just on the northern side of the southern side, rather, of the River Odon, and then tell everybody to dig in and hold fast.
Yeah.
So some of the early units in Operation Epsom, such as the 6th King's Own Scottish Borderers and others, they're covering the whole salient. It's a bit like, you know, the salient around, you know, in Arnhem, for example. Yeah. And they know it's coming.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it does come, but it doesn't come when the 9th SS are supposed to come. So they're supposed to attack first thing in the morning at 7 a.m., but they're just simply not ready. And the Nebelwerfer regiment, which is going to support them, hasn't arrived. It's not in position yet.
Right.
So then it gets postponed to 9 a.m., but that still isn't. They're still not ready then. So it's not until the afternoon that they finally attack.
Okay. By
which point the British have had even more time to dig in.
Yep.
You know, that's another hours in which you're kind of deepening the foxhole you're in and all the rest of it, and bringing out mortars and bringing out more ammunition and getting your artillery to zero potential attack lines, blah, blah, blah.
And what strength are the Germans attacking in?
Well, both divisions are 17,000 strong, and they've left Russia on the 12th of June.
Right.
So, you know, that's pretty quick going for such a big distance.
Yeah. But also shows the sort of vacuum at the heart of German strategy, which is like that you would they're under enough pressure on the Eastern Front and they know another offensive must be coming on the Eastern Front, but they denuded it to fight here. It just shows that they've no options, actually.
Yeah.
And given that the Allied strategy is to get them here so they can destroy them, again, it's all grist to the Allied mill, isn't it?
Yeah, and they come down this road with 17 Panthers, and I think all of them get knocked out.
Really?
Yeah.
By what?
By anti-tank guns.
So 17-pounders, 6-pounders, M10s, whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Absolute rain of artillery fire.
Yeah.
You know, because this is the Allied way of war personified.
Yeah.
You know, this is how they do it. You know, you wait, you poke the hornet's nest, wait for the Germans to do their counterattack. When they do their counterattack, they're exposed. It's them suddenly having to advance across open ground, and we've got more guns than they have.
Yeah.
You know, so they're going to lose.
Yep. And the Germans can't resist it either.
And they can't resist it. This is how they've worked out how to defeat the Germans. You probe, you wait for them to counterattack, and then you wham them with all the firepower you possibly can. And by the 29th of June, that includes air power as well.
Yeah.
You know, rocket-firing Typhoons coming over. Yeah. You know, it's absolute carnage.
So they come down this road.
They come down this road and another road there.
And is it done in a day?
You know, it's more of the same on the 30th, but you know, you're never as effective as when you first strike, are you?
Yeah.
So, you know, they get absolutely nowhere, and by the 30th, by nightfall on the 30th, it's all over.
Yeah.
And Dempsey and O'Connor have reasons to feel pretty pleased, actually, because, okay, so they haven't got the breakthrough, but they have done exactly what they needed to do, which was with their understrength operational attack, which is what Epsom is. It's not, you know, because of the Great Storm and because they're a core down. After Epsom, there is no conceivable chance at all that the Germans are going to mount a coordinated counterattack that's going to be decisive. So from this point on, I mean, I think it's probably not been in doubt before that, but it is absolutely categorically not in doubt what the outcome of the Normandy campaign is going to be.
Right.
The Allies are going to win. How long it's going to take, what form it's going to take, all that's still up for grabs. But they are going to win.
The form it's going to take is more of the same.
Certainly
more
for
of
a bit.
this.
Yeah.
This kind of fighting, where you goad the Germans into doing something daft, basically.
But, you know, I mean, from this point here, you know, we are less than a mile from Cheux and La Haute Bosque, which is a kind of little hamlet on the edge of Cheux. And, you know, the Germans are hammering away with everything they've got, and shells and mortars are dropping, throwing up huge, great mountains of earth and smoke, and vehicles are on fire, you know, British vehicles, but German vehicles as well. And one of the big problems they have is that it's less the tanks that get hit, although the 17 Panthers do get knocked out eventually by the day's end. It's more in the initial advance. It's the soft skins, it's the half tracks, it's the trucks carrying the motorised infantry that get hit. And so there is a lack of coordination between the infantry and the armour. It's the same problem that the British have been having in Normandy so far. And it's exactly the same for the Germans.
Yeah. Okay. So on to where now?
So we're now just going to go and look at another point where the fighting took place and have a look at where the 6th King's Own Scottish Borderers, that's Robert Walcombe, and where they were.
Right, so here we are. We've come round the back, the southern end. Sort of, if Hill 112 is a kidney bean, we've traversed the full kidney, right?
Yep.
We've limbed it from side to side and end to end. So Malto is over the other side completely.
Yes, directly opposite from where we are at the moment.
Yeah, and we've come round the base of it to the south.
Yes, we can see Hill 112 there. You can just see the flag and a glint of some vehicles up there where they're doing their little commemoration. You can see the wood, which was the headquarters of 8th DLI when they first came up on the 28th of June.
Yep.
And the ridge, which was then taken over by the 10th SS Frundsberg. And after we left Malto, we went to Vieux, which is where the 10th SS had their command post. And we then went on to Esquet and Le Bon Repos. And these were all villages that were wrecked entirely during the battle. This whole scene that we're looking at, as I said before, was, a pitiful sight.
A charnel house.
A charnel house, exactly. But this is a good place to kind of wrap up this battle, because this is a very good vantage point. We're on the road heading back down from Le Bon Repos back down into, is it Tourville?
Yeah.
And Granville.
Yeah.
Over the River Odon, the crossing point over the River Odon. I think there's a traction avant coming towards us, which is quite exciting.
Oh, another one. So we're parked up in ours, and there's another one coming.
You're coming fast. I mean, we're that windscreen anywhere. Just tooting. We're a fraternity. We're a band of brothers.
Well, and it's a wheat field. There are poppies.
Yes, it's actually rather moving, isn't it? There's a breeze sort of brushing against the rapidly ripening corn. It's a very peaceful scene. But actually, Hill 112 was finally taken on the 22nd of July, Operation Exercise. And this is where you get the sight, you see how the British are learning the lessons, this new techniques of how to get armour and infantry, and indeed artillery as well, to sort of cooperate properly. And the difference is, although the fighting has continued after the 11th of July, after the sort of petering out of Jupiter, there's been a sort of scrappy attritional fighting over here ever since, and Malto has exchanged hands a number of times since. Despite that, what they've done is they've taken the time, they've done proper reconnaissance, they've worked things out, they've softened up, they've got a really good fire plan. When the 2 battalions of Wiltshires go in with the armour, everyone knows what they're doing. They've now kind of formed relationships. There's no surprises anymore. They know what they've got to do. And on top of that, of course, the 10th SS are completely whacked. They're on their last legs. The 43rd Wessex Division is constantly getting replacements. 11th Armoured Division is constantly getting replacements. 4th Armoured Brigade is getting replacements. 10th SS is getting, precisely zip. I mean, literally no replacements whatsoever. And they're being pressured at every corner. And this is the 22nd of July. This is 3 days before Cobra, where the breakout's going to happen. And this is this attritional war. This is this attritional battle. There is this huge pressure to get on with it, as we've discussed in the podcast series that we did on D-Day. But you see this, they finally get Hill 112 rather, because A, they've got better, and B, because the Germans have got nothing left in the tank. On the 22nd, they get the inevitable counterattacks. 400 prisoners are taken, and it's game over. And finally, this is taken for the last time. But what a battle! What a fight!
That's extraordinary, and all the more remarkable because it's the first thing the British set out to do. It's their first operation, and it's the operation that actually speaks of the character of how the whole Overlord battle plays out, what your priorities are, how you're learning on the hoof, how you're one way or another you're wearing the enemy down. You take territory or not, you're wearing the enemy down. And it's sort of, in a way, it's if there's one battle that encapsulates how Overlord runs, it's this one, isn't it? Right?
Yeah. But I mean, just look at it here. I mean, we've got the dead ground. So, okay, just to the north of us here, under the telegraph wire, the ground drops. You're safe there. You're not completely safe, but you can't be seen. It's dead ground. But look at this to get to there.
Oh, yeah.
You know, to get to this village. You know, anyone in that village, you can see you coming.
Yeah.
You know, there's no difference really. The hedgerow in front of us there, that's the Risso de Sabli all over again, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, that's Hans Siegel all over again. And you look at that stretch going up to Hill 112. I mean, how do you advance over that?
Well,
it's big open ground. Anyone behind those tree lines.
You shell the bejesus out of it, don't you?
Of course, that's how you do
Tanks
it.
trickle up and then you shell the bejesus out of it again.
You take lots of hits, and you know he who's got the most at the end is the winner. But you can see why this is attritional, and you can see why this takes. You know, this is a 3.5 week battle, effectively, if you include Epsom as well.
But it raises some questions. The Wessex Division could never be described as the Dorsets, or could never be described as ideologically motivated soldiers, could they? Die in a ditch, guys, but they win.
Yep.
Whereas the people they're fighting can be described as that.
Yep.
And they lose. So your state of preparedness, personal preparedness to die in a ditch, may not be relevant necessarily to how well you're going to do. I mean, that company of Dorsets are wiped out in Malto. How do the Dorsets pick themselves up after that and carry on? Because I know that the SS guys, if a company's wiped out, they pick themselves up and carry on because it's the defence of the fatherland. The world is out to get us. You know, I mean, I can't think any of in a trench saying to the other, well, thank goodness we've done something about the Treaty of Versailles, right? Which is cited as a German grievance, right?
Yes.
But you know what I mean? They have that at least.
Yeah.
What are the lads from Bournemouth and Poole?
Well, Walter Keynes, who we quoted earlier on, he's from Blandford Forum. You know, he's from Blandford in Dorset.
Yeah.
Just down the road from, you know, Tarrant Rushton Airfield.
Yeah.
You know, he's just a local Dorset lad.
What's he doing it for?
Bit. Yeah, well, he's spending most of his time feeling absolutely terrified. He's in the signals platoon.
Yeah,
and you know, it's the scale of shelling is just. It's just you simply you can't picture it. You can't imagine it. It's too intense. You know, and every time shells come over, barrage come over, the whole ground trembles. You know, you think he's got his name on it. The cacophony is just appalling. The smoke, the fatigue. You know, you're just endlessly exhausted. I'm really glad we've done this battle.
No, I am.
I'm really, really glad. I think it's such a hinge battle, isn't it?
Well, and the paradigm, it's the paradigmatic battle of the British end, Canadian end of Overlord, isn't it? Is the truth?
Yeah. A really, really important one.
Yeah.
Well worth coming and having a look.
Absolutely.
Anyway, on that note,
we have some lunch.
Yeah, go on.
Let's have some lunch. Thanks everyone for listening. If you have enjoyed this, there's I don't know. I'm not keeping count anymore. There's about 800 other episodes of us talking like this out there. And if you want to see them ordered in subjects, then go to our Apple Podcast channel and subscribe to that. And for the price of, I think, half a pint of London Shandy at least, the way things are going. And you've got the whole lot laid out before you. So times we talked about Normandy before, times we talked about everything else in this endlessly gigantic subject of the Second World War. And we'll see you, I'm sure, in a couple of weeks' time at We Have Ways Fest, which takes place 19th to 21st July. So smack in the middle of the time we're talking about, 80 years after the time we're talking about. Isn't it, Jim?
Yeah.
And we'll see you there. wehavewaysfest.co.uk. Buy your tickets for the best Second World War festival on Earth.
In the entire world.
In the world. Thanks for listening. We're going for some pain, probably, and some vin.
And some boursin.
No, we're not having boursin. We're not going to come to France and eat boursin. Anyway, thanks for listening. Cheerio.
Farewell.